Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Gynoug, another Genesis classic ported to modern consoles. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. Originally from publisher Masaya, Gynoug, or Wings of War as was known as in North America, released for the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis in 1991. It would see release on the Nintendo Wii, but only in the Japanese region. Then fast forward to mid-November of 2021, and it's now available courtesy of Laika Games on the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today, the Xbox and PlayStation families of console. So, Gynoug, or Wings of War, is a really interesting horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. And what's interesting about this title? The art. That's the really big selling point of the game. Not surprising considering that this is the company that would later go on to make the Choaniki series, or at least start it. But the art for Gynoug is a little bit of a different lean. It goes in a fantasy direction and almost into the grotesque, kind of like this Geiger-like art, to be honest. And that was its big selling point at the time, and it's also one of the things that they're selling this particular release on. So if you're into classic Genesis shoot-em-ups or ones that have an interesting and different art style, then I think this one is worth checking out. Also, once again, I feel like Laika Games has done an excellent job with the emulation. So diving into the game itself, before we do, here we find ourselves at the main menu. We can go into the options and we can see once again what we have available for the emulation. We have the ability to remap our controls, some nice video options, as well as some really good cheats, and the ability to rewind the game is once again present. This doesn't have the different versions that Grey Lancer had though, so that's something to keep in mind. One thing that I do find interesting about the video is some of the wallpaper choices just seemed a little bit odd, and I'll go and show you that real quick. So when you go to the wallpaper, we can preview. So this is just the mist wallpaper, and that's your default. We have the ability to change it to be the creatures or the with war on there as well, and that's the original Gynoug cover. However, the gameplay completely covers that up, save for like a little border on the one side. So it seems like their choice and design of the wallpaper could have used a bit of work. But you do have the ability to also change your display ratio, so the standard 4:3 pixel perfect or full screen, and there's some nice shader options like setting it to CRT. There are also some really nice cheats that can help make the game easier, and if you're just here to check out the game itself for the art and just experience it, then it's not bad to play with some of these turned on. As you can see, we do have that turned on just to kind of make our experience a little bit easier. Starting the game, we fire up the emulation and we have the really nice star-filled Masaya Games logo. Then we've got our starting screen here. So even in the title screen, you see that there's a nice little bit of pixel art here. And you can kind of see some of the vibes of what would later be like a Choaniki going on in this as well. Starting the game, we can kind of see that it's your standard horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. We have the ability to fire a weapon, and it starts out as this like dual spread. And throughout the course of our gameplay, we'll be powering that up. I'll get to how in just a second. As far as other attacks are concerned, we also have the ability to equip a magic shot once we pick those up. And most of those are limited use, but there is one that powers up your main shot as well. So the game is frankly just like beautiful from a pixel art perspective, and we can kind of see that with this section where they're even manipulating the screen, rotating it back and forth. But like that screen rotation is like used throughout other stages as well to some weird effect. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the power-ups before we dive into much else. So throughout the course of the gameplay, you'll go and come across these feathers. Those are what increase our speed. So we start at a rather slow speed, but as you pick up the feathers, you'll get faster and faster, all the way up to 8 times your base. Well, you can pick up 8 feathers anyway. It's not exactly 8 times, but that's just way too fast. So that is something that's different from other Genesis shoot-'em-ups of the era where you had control over your speed. This one, it's power up based, kind of along the lines of a Gradius style. So as far as the weapons are concerned, so we've been picking up 2 colors of orbs, and as we do that, we're increasing our meter there in the top of the screen. So the 2 color orbs, the blue orbs are known as the orbs of pattern, the red orbs are known as the orbs of power. So the orbs of pattern increase the number of shots and our spread, depending on which weapon we have equipped, and the orbs of power obviously increase our shot strength. So the stages in this game are actually quite long. Stages 1 through 5 all consist of a mid-boss and a final boss, so that was our mid-boss for stage 1, and then the final stage is more of a boss rush experience. So, real quick, going back to the weapons, there are 3 different weapon orbs that we can collect. The blue one gives us this awesome straight shot, which also has a little bit of a back sweep to it. It's not super useful getting enemies behind you. There is one particular pickup for that, and hopefully we'll see that here in just a moment. Then there's the red shot, which acts as a spread. So this one is the yellow shot. This is our back shot, and this is the only thing that really gives us an easy ability to shoot behind us. So at the beginning, I mentioned that we also had a magic attack. The interesting thing about that is you can see we've been picking up scrolls, E-scrolls in particular. I'm going to change back to the original spread that we started with. That's the red orb. Or rather gem. There's like but they're all kind of orbs. Just note that the one that's got the gray border is your weapons, and the ones that are just like red or blue increase your spread or your attack. Anyway, back to the magic. So we've been picking up these yellow scrolls, but the interesting thing is before we can use those magic, we actually have to select them. So here we've selected the E scroll, and then I promptly die. If you have multiple letters of the same piled up, you'll actually create a stronger scroll. So here, this is the S scroll. This one is going to be our aura sphere or shield. We can pick up multiple of those. It just provides a momentary period of invulnerability. There are a total of 8 different magic shots that you can select throughout the course of the game, but this is one area where I do take issue with the way that they set that up, with the weapons that we were picking up as well. So everything is fixed. You'll always encounter the same type of weapon or magic at the same points in the stages. And this is a little disappointing as you'll only see certain magic or weapons at certain times. Like the back shot, from the playthroughs I've done, I can only recall having come across it in 2, maybe 3 points throughout the course of the gameplay, which seems weird as there are points where it would be useful to see that. So here we find ourselves fighting the first boss of the game, and you can see here this what I was talking about with the grotesque, almost like Geiger-esque appearance. So it's like it got a very steampunky look where you're fighting this train, but it also happens to have a very human face on the front of it. So from the promotional pictures that were provided on the Nintendo eShop, I was totally thinking it's like, wow, this game is all about shooting faces. And to be honest, it kind of is. So many of the enemies, so many of the bosses have that look. So yeah, we're just going around shooting like I see heads. So this would be a great point to have a weapon that fired behind us, but sadly at the moment we do not. But one thing that in addition to always like shooting heads, you actually can see that there's just a lot of variety in enemies throughout the course of the game. Actually very, very impressive for a Genesis shoot-'em-up of this era, to be honest. So throughout the course of our gameplay, like the first few stages, we'll actually only see 3, maybe 4 of those particular magic selects that I was like talking about. But I'll be able to better explain once I pick up the lightning and the thunderbolts in this stage. Ultimately, there were 5 of them that are, or no, wait, 6 of them that are considered offensive, and then you've got 2 more that are defensive. So, activating this T, we get this Thunderbolt, and that's, I'll stop firing for a moment, a rather powerful forward-firing bolt, at least at its like a base power. That's one of the only ways that we can destroy those clouds that drop tears on us. So after starting the stage above this water, we're now going to go underwater, a rather fun little like thing that so many games like to do. And I do appreciate when you have an effect on the characters when you move through the plane of the water. And that's basically Gynoug, or Wings of War, served up for your enjoyment. Just a rather little aside, I was a little surprised that they did not title this one as Wings of War for its North American release, as that's what the title was known as in its United States or North American release, rather than going with the more unknown like a Japanese title. But still, this is one that I've enjoyed my time with and would recommend, though admittedly I don't like this title as much as Radalaika's other release so far, Grey Lancer. So the minus flavors, so this is one of the problem that I kind of had with Grey Lancer, but it was less of an issue with that game, as that game did have some decent in-game tutorials explaining its systems and weapons, whereas there's nothing like that in Gynoug. It would have been really nice to have a manual explaining what the various color orbs specifically were, rather than having to look up the original Genesis manual to figure that out, as well as the various magics. I mean, like, you can see their names, so we can activate the lightning bolt, and for here, like, we have this little fairy that's like flying above us, and that one will fire a lightning bolt downward. Then if we activate our magic right now, it'll select 2 Ts, and we'll have a more powerful thunderbolt. So instead of firing forward, it fires with just one. This is a triple shot, and I do like that element. But once again, one thing to note is that everything is kind of curated for when you're going to get the various power-ups, so you might not be able to make use of that as well as you would like. And that's the other minus flavors, just the fact that everything is kind of set up in a particular way, and so it's not possible to, of like a lot of shoot 'em ups, I cycle through the various power-ups and get certain power-ups earlier in the game. You can only use the power-ups when they want you to. But on the plus side of things, I really love the incredible pixel art, specifically with the enemy sprites. You know, it's definitely leans towards the grotesque side, but that once again is its selling point. And it's kind of just neat to see what certain developers kind of come up with or experiment with. And then I definitely have to give kudos one more time to Radalaika and the emulation that they've prepared for this particular title. I think it's really well done, and to be honest, I would love to see them release even more titles from the Genesis era on modern consoles. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.